Hey there, guys. Gamer Jamie Triple One here, and as you can see from this title, the topic I'm talking about today, and I am here today talking about this topic of how Doctor Who has always been woke. But I want to focus in specifically on the topic of this video being how every actor to portray the Doctor has been a woke or DEI hire, as the anti woke bigots would say. And I'm doing this because I have heard a lot going around lately, mainly of Doctor Who being cancelled because it's gone woke, or the Ncuti Gatwa is leaving Doctor Who because he's annoyed at the wokeness in Doctor Who, or he's annoyed that it's not the right kind of woke, or it's not woke enough, or whatever the right wing grifters say today as to why Ncuti is leaving. Um, I personally believe that if Ncuti is indeed leaving, it is likely due to the uncertainty of when filming for seasons 3 and 4 will be taking place, assuming they will be double filming again as they did with seasons 1 and 2, with season 1 being filmed from December 2022 to July 2023, and season 2 being filmed from October 2023 to May 2024, coincidentally finishing the very same day the 73 Yards was aired, with pre-production of season 2 happening just 4 weeks after season 1 finished filming, and roughly 10 weeks later started filming again, with pre-production of season 3 likely starting in June or July, with filming commencing by October of 2025. This schedule of him leaving before the start of production for season 3 would be most likely if he is thinking of his career more so than the show itself, as he is a very sought after actor and he has to think of his career beyond a single role. He could do this with Sex Education because he was signed on a series basis by the biggest streaming service and was reliable in terms of production dates and renewing series. And should he receive another role, they were accommodating enough, whereas Doctor Who only accommodated his first 4 weeks of filming because he was finishing another job, something they would not be as willing to do going forward because of the turnaround needed for season 3 and 4. And if he has to wait around for months for any word as to what he can and can't do in terms of what roles and what schedule he can be put forward for, on the off chance that Doctor Who lets him go from any contracts, or if they keep him on as a doctor beyond his current contract, assuming his contract was for season 1 and 2 with an optional extension for season 3 and 4, should both production and actor be willing and wish to continue with him. Now, the reason they are currently waiting is due to Disney agreeing to continue the agreement they have ongoing, a decision which will be arriving after the second season has aired. This delay is Disney dragging its feet on whether to continue the agreement, which could determine whether Bad Wolf can move forward with a budget of, hypothetically, I'm using round numbers to sort of show my my working out, of hypothetically £1 million per episode from the BBC alone, or £2 million per episode with Disney and the BBC. If they were going to go into production assuming they would get the Disney money and then find out at the start of production that they were only going to get the BBC money, they would have to somehow figure out how to do a £2 million episode on £1 million. So that's why they have to wait. This decision is solely awaiting Disney, not the BBC, because the BBC has already said they plan to have it round until at least 2028 with an increased budget from the BBC itself. So that means that the BBC has unofficially renewed it until 2028 minimum. So that is up to and including Series 18 should they come out yearly. Now, or season 5 as it would be under the current uh, name and structure. Uh, the BBC budget increase for Doctor Who comes alongside an increased budget to EastEnders, both of which are the BBC's biggest financial boosts, especially after the demise of Top Gear, which was the biggest under the Jeremy Clarkson, James May, Richard Hammond trio, and it slowly faded off afterwards until its ultimate cancellation due to the injury of former host Freddie Flintoff. But for today's video, I am going to be talking about what makes each actor DEI under the current guidelines as set out by the BBC as a basis for determining each actor's specific DEI qualities should the current policy have been applied to previous eras of Doctor Who at the time of those eras. But before we do that, I want to add that Doctor Who is currently being praised by Disney as being a top 5 show for every week there was a new episode during 2024. And that isn't including the top 10 per week on TV in the UK, according to the BARB. Whether this includes the Christmas special or not, a top 5 show on Disney is not an easy task for a show like Doctor Who on Disney, where there is a vast amount of choice in terms of variety and choice, especially with the under 35s category, who would wait for the full season to binge, or those who have so many options in terms of channels and entertainment shows. Just proves that Doctor Who still has plenty of life yet, no matter who tries to call the show dead. Now, before all of that, though, the first 4 actors were unique in that they were and will only ever be the only actors born in their respective decade to play the Doctor. Hartnell in the 1900s, being born in 1908. Pertwee in the 1910s, being born in 1919. Troughton in the 20s, being born in 1920. And Tom Baker in the 30s, being born in 1934. And 3 of the revived actors, as of 2025, hold that same distinction. Christopher Eccleston is the only actor born in the 60s, being born in 1964. Tennant is the only actor born in the 70s, being born in 1971. And Ncuti is the only actor born in the 90s, being born in 1992. All 7 actors so far have this unique accomplishment to playing the Doctor. So, before we get into it properly, I'm going to have a drink. Now, I am starting with, obviously, the first Doctor, William Hartnell. Now, he would be considered a DEI hire. I'm going to stop doing the air quotes, but anytime I say DEI hire, no, I'm doing them. Because he was in his mid-50s and lasted until he was closing in on 60. being 55 to 58, which in 1963 to 66 was the national pension age for women and was early pension age for some men. And in his final year and final season as the Doctor was also a disabled actor due to his rapidly advancing illness, cerebrovascular disease, that plagued his ability to remember the technobabble of the show effectively enough. And when he returned in 1973, 10 years after his debut, he was 65, which was at the pension age for men, meaning he was officially a pensioner actor. And he was even more disabled due to his declining health, getting much worse in the 7 years interim. Which is why his final ever appearance as the Doctor and as an actor altogether was in a studio with cue cards for him to read out loud because he couldn't remember his lines properly and couldn't engage in the story too much beyond these limitations. He was also the only grandfather to play the Doctor at the time of his casting. Others had become grandpas by the time of future appearances, but Hartnell was the only actor to be a grandfather when he was cast. And unfortunately, within 13 months of his final appearance, he was admitted to hospital indefinitely, and he died some 4 or 5 months later, which was 18 or so months after his final appearance. And all of this is before we add on the 2 actors who were cast as the first Doctor, replacing Hartnell after his death, starting with the 73-year-old Richard Hurndall in 1983, who was well above the pension age by 8 years and was 18 years older than Hartnell when Hartnell started playing the Doctor. And unfortunately, Hurndall passed away within 6 months of his only appearance. And the 75-year-old David Bradley, who was 80 in his most recent appearance, which is also above the pension age by some 15 years, and was older than Hartnell when he played the Doctor by 20 years, and was the first recast actor to make subsequent reappearances as the Doctor. Second up is the second Doctor, Patrick Troughton. He was a DEI hire because he was a character actor who was signed up to a dramatic role despite mainly playing comedic roles up until that point. When he appeared in 1973, he was 52 to 53, which meant he was hired as an older actor, those aged above 50, which was rare in the 50s through to the 70s, and became more commonplace in soaps rather than action shows like Doctor Who. When he reappeared in 1983, he was now 63 years old, which was close to the pension age at that time for men of 65, which he hit just after his final appearance in the show in 1985, meaning he was officially a pensioner actor at that point, should he have reappeared afterwards. He also died within 2 years of this final appearance, meaning he was one of 3 actors to die within 2 years of his final appearance, that being Hartnell, Hurndall, and Troughton himself. Troughton's death came after only securing 5 more acting gigs, 2 of which were released posthumously. Up next is John Pertwee, the Third Doctor. He was actually a year older than Troughton when he took over, having been born in 1919 to Troughton's 1920. He was also a disabled actor, having suffered with some form of chronic back pain that pursued him throughout the rest of his life. The cause of which I have been unable to find as of writing this script. If I can find a cause, I will insert the source material here. If not, then I will just write, I didn't. Let's find out what I put. And when he was last cast as the Doctor in any on-screen BBC media for Doctor Who, it was 1993 when he was 73 to 74. He was well above the pension age at that point by almost a decade, and died within 3 years of this appearance, although he also played the Doctor in Doctor Who media for Surprise Surprise, which was released just a day short of a full month before his death at 76 on the 21st of April, whilst his death was the 20th of May. Whether you would count this or not is up to you. Up next is number 4, Tom Baker. Tom is DEI because he has, or at least had, a natural northwestern accent, specifically Scouse accent, but he had a more RP voice for the character. This means for his role as the Doctor, he was hired under a voice that is not his natural accent, which is DEI under the BBC's own definition, those that can naturally do accents other than and including their own. He is also the oldest actor to portray the Doctor on screen in Sharda, which he filmed at 83 years old, and is currently 91, and could make a return should he choose to, meaning he would be the oldest person to ever portray a Doctor in official media. He was also close to becoming a man of the cloth until he got into acting, and that swayed his fancy away from the clergy, so a former person of faith too. At least a former leader of faith, or wanting to be a leader of faith. At number 5, we have the 5th Doctor, Peter Davison. He was the youngest actor so far. He was also an avid cricketer who attended public school, which is 3 DEI hires in one. Younger actor who was sporty and hailed from a working class background. He was also 72 when he appeared in his latest appearance by him. This could change upon further episodic releases. And this was above the national pension age of 66 by 6 years. He was also the first childless actor to play the Doctor, but not the last actor to be childless, although his first child would be born just 7 months after his final episode aired. Next, the most controversial actor, Colin Baker as the 6th Doctor. He was the first actor to portray a completely unrelated character to then be cast as the Doctor just a year later. He was also around 8 years older than Davison. He was also an actor with a more northern, natural accent, having moved up north at a young age, but again put on an RP accent. He was also educated at a Roman Catholic college in the north, where he left with an array of education results, including 3 languages, 2 of which he was strong with, which meant he could be called upon to use those three languages should the script require him. He was 79 during his latest appearance, which is 13 years above the current pension age. Next up is number 7, Seventh Doctor, Sylvester McCoy, the first properly DEI hire during the classic run. A Scotsman who uses his natural Scottish accent along with an RP accent, majority mixing the two accents together. And standing at a smaller 5'6", he is one of, if not the shortest of the actors to portray the Doctor. He also comes from a family where his mother had a seemingly undiagnosed mental health issue, for which she was institutionalized, and McCoy was also learning to join the clergy, but decided not to and continued with his acting education. He was only 79. He was also 79 during his latest appearance, which is 13 years above the current pension age, and is roughly 2.5 months younger than his predecessor, who also appeared in the same episode at the same age. Now, number 8, Paul McGann. This was super easy, because with this being an American production, it was super easy to get all of the DEI qualities instantly. He was a Brit. He was hired for specific looks, but he had to wear a wig during the production. He also had a very pronounced Scouse accent, which he did not use during his on-screen appearances as the Doctor, but he does use for conventions, meet and greets, all of that. He was also the latest born during the classic run of Doctor Who, having been born in 1959, which was the closest birth to the start of Doctor Who that was before the start that anyone has been born who played the Doctor. And he was 62, almost 63, when he made his first fully canonical episodic appearance in the show proper, in The Power of the Doctor. Next, you're probably expecting me to say number 9, Ninth Doctor Christopher Eccleston. I'm not. I'm going to say John Hurt, the War Doctor. Just because he didn't call himself the Doctor, he was still a regeneration, and that's where his regeneration sat. So, when he appeared, he was 73, which makes him the oldest new Doctor ever, not just reprisals and recasts of the same incarnation as was done with the first Doctor, but also means he was above the pension age by 7 years instantly. And he died within 4 years of his appearance in Doctor Who, which is the shortest time between a new incarnation being shown for the first time and their actor's death. He was also an RP accented actor who did not have a natural RP accent, but a Derbyshire accent, and was the son of a clergyman and attended a preparatory private school. Up next is, finally, the Ninth Doctor, Christopher Eccleston. I'll get all the easy stuff out the way. He was a northern accented actor who proudly used his very pronounced Mancunian accent during production. He was also suffering with mental and physical health issues outside of production, namely depression and bulimia, which production worsened, which means he was a disabled actor. And he was also a working class actor who went to public schools and local theatres for early days jobs. to which he contributes to this day to help the next generation of Mancunian actors get a start in the business. He was also the second childless actor to portray the Doctor. He was also the first and so far only actor born in the 60s to play the Doctor. Next up, David Tennant as 10. The first time he's on this list, but not the last because of the differences when he comes back around. This time, however, he is a Scottish accented actor who does not use his Scottish accent, bar one episode where he's allowed to use it. So he is both an actor who does and does not use his natural accent. He is also a fan of the show and would not be an actor if not for the show. So this DEI hire is because of all the other DEI hires of the classic era. Tennant was also the third and second consecutive childless actor to play the Doctor and was the only actor born in the 70s to portray the Doctor. Next is the 11th Doctor, Matt Smith. Now, this was fun to pinpoint. He was a Northampton lad who initially started out with a bit of a Northampton accent, but eventually became more RP as time went on. But he was and still is a disabled actor, having been interested in football until a back injury. Again, something that I don't know the exact nature of. I'll put it here. Saw an end to that particular dream. He was also the youngest to play the Doctor at the time of filming, but is not the latest born. That belongs to one other actor who was born later than Matt. And Smith was the fourth and third consecutive childless actor to play the Doctor, as well as being the first millennial to play the Doctor. Up next is Peter Capaldi, 12th Doctor. He was a Scottish accented actor who used his natural Scottish accent and was also the oldest, having been the Doctor from 55 to 59. And should he reappear from now onwards, he is now 66, which is currently at the pension age, but should he appear after his birthday in April 2025, he would actually be above the age of pension. He was also educated, as far as I can find, at public schools. He was also the only Scottish actor to work under a Scottish showrunner in Moffat. He was also the second actor to portray an unrelated character in Doctor Who, only to be recast as the Doctor, although it was 5 years later rather than the following year, as it was with Colin Baker. He was also the first actor to be a side character in the main show, side character in a spin-off, and then cast as the Doctor in the main show. Up next is Jodie Whittaker, the 13th Doctor. Now, I'll get the obvious ones out of the way. First woman to be the Doctor, youngest woman to be the Doctor, first Northeastern actor with a very pronounced accent used in the role, but she was also the first mother to play the Doctor, and was also the first and only person to have two hearts at the time of her regeneration out of the character, having been pregnant during that final scene, thus having two hearts. Next is Jo Martin as the Fugitive Doctor. Jo is the first woman of colour to play the Doctor, first person of colour to play the Doctor. She was also the first person of Jamaican origin to play the Doctor, but she was also the oldest woman to play the part at 40 to 42 to Jodie's 35 to 40. She is also the first non-mother woman to play the Doctor, making her the fifth childless actor to portray the Doctor. Up next is David Tennant as 14. He was the first to reappear as an old actor portraying a new incarnation. He was also a 51-year-old at the time of release of his return, and 52 when he officially left the part for good. He was also the first upon his return to now be a father, so was the first to go from childless to fatherhood upon both of his castings, which is added onto his earlier entry, including his lack of Scottish accent, despite that being his natural accent, etc. And finally, Ncuti Gatwa, the 15th Doctor. The obvious ones again: first black leading actor for the mainline series, the latest being born in 1992. He is also the first and so far only 90s baby to play the Doctor, and Gatwa is the first actor to be born after the classic cancellation during the Wilderness years to play the Doctor. He is also the first African-born actor, the first queer actor, and the first ethnically derived accented actor, having a mixture of African, specifically Rwandan, and Scottish and some Englishy accent in the mix, but sticking to a more broad accent, but has used his Scottish and Rwandan accents during his run on the show. So he has 3 distinct accents and has used all 3 of them. He is also the 6th childless actor to portray the Doctor. And that is the end of my particular list. But now, where we go next and who we get next is literally up in the air. It could be just about anyone and everyone. And DEI is never a bad thing, because progressive casting is never the issue when the showrunners know what they're doing. As showrunners of Doctor Who, for the most part, do know what they're doing. And as proven by this very video, every actor has been a DEI hire in one form or another, which is not exclusive to people of colour, women, or the LGBTQIA plus community. And if you want to scream about RTD being woke for being gay and making the show super gay and socialist, literally the first showrunner was a Jewish woman. The first director was a South Asian born gay man immigrant. And the show itself was thought up by a Canadian immigrant, both of whom immigrated to the UK from areas under British rule at the time of their birth and immigration, that of India and Canada, with only Canada still being under British monarch rule as part of the Commonwealth to this day. And pretty much the latter half of the 80s was written by card-carrying socialists who hated the current government at the time, the Thatcher government, and wanted to bring the Thatcher government down in Doctor Who, which is why the Happiness Patrol was produced, and one of the victims was wearing a pink triangle, which was code for homosexual, derived from the concentration camps, which at that point was still in living memory. And this was pretty much what the Thatcher government did by not responding to the HIV/AIDS epidemic, leaving so many of them to return home and die in their childhood beds or die in hospitals, with lesbians picking up the slack in providing care and also providing blood for them, for the most part, which is why we put the L first, to honor those lesbians who stood up for those physically too weak to stand up for themselves. So don't piss on my head and tell me it's raining when these are objective facts. The show has been woke since its very inception because it was envisioned as a better ideal for the world, also known as progressive or socialist, with the very first story talking of how the cavemen saw the fire starter as the most important of the group, whereas Ian Chesterton did not, because anyone can make fire in 1963, with major improvements in how fire is produced, let alone thought about in terms of necessity in a 60s world with ease of access to matches, to lighters, to fireplaces, to cookers, to central heating, all of which have largely stayed relevant and all of which have had major upgrades in the 6 decades since the story, including the loss of fireplaces and replaced with electrical fireplaces, from the invention of the air fryer to the major upgrade on central heating radiators, which are way more compact than they were in the 60s and much safer for use nowadays compared to back then. All of these upgrades and further inventions are thanks to those who benefit from woke advancements in technology and hiring practices. So, progressive advancements in the world is not a bad thing. And progressive casting in Doctor Who, especially, is also not a bad thing. The issue that we have currently is that DEI is just effectively a placeholder for slurs. And we need to bring the conversation back to what they are trying to say by calling the show DEI. And for racists, for homophobes, for misogynists, for transphobes, for whatever the bigotry is, it is literally just the nicest way of calling people slurs. They called Kendrick Lamar's halftime show at the Super Bowl the DEI halftime show, but everybody knows they wanted to call him the N-word. Same as those who called Pete Buttigieg a DEI transportation officer. They just wanted to call him an F slur. And whilst there is no outright slurs for women, they are perpetuating misogyny, with MPs going so far as saying that a woman Doctor Who leads boys to commit crimes, despite there being over 50 years of male doctors for them to look up to as a pacifist character. The Doctor is always a pacifist role model for anybody, and they had over 50 years of male doctors for them to look up to, whilst young girls had 5 years with a strong, intelligent role model as the Doctor for the first time, instead of being at the side as the companion who screamed in the stress every 10 minutes in every story. This is perpetuating that every male issue is because of women, when it's not. every male issue is a perpetuation of toxic masculinity, which is drilled into every male by male family members, predominantly their fathers and grandfathers. Uh, that is perpetuating further toxic masculinity, and that eventually leads to generational trauma. Um, and if you want to blame women for men's issues, then take it somewhere else, because I am not litigating this issue. I said what I said, and any comment that serves as an attempt to attack me, or for this objective fact, or attack women or blame women for men's issues, it will be deleted. I'm not litigating this. This is not a place for you to come into the comment section and say, well, every man's issue, like every male issue is because of women. No, it's not. That man is their own person. They fucked up. They bear responsibility. End of. No woman is to blame. That grown ass man is a grown ass man. It's his responsibility. But for now, leave in the comment section if you were surprised at all by any of this video. But especially if you were surprised to hear the DEI qualities of each actor, and which part you were surprised by if you were. I know this comment section is going to be so fun to read. What have I done? Anyway, I've been Gamer Jamie 111. Please share, comment, share, subscribe. That's the way that I do it. Comment, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. I've been Gamer Jamie 111, and I will see you guys in the next video, unless I've been attacked by the comment section. Bye.